Hey everybody, I want to give everybody a quick update on my Model A pickup, where I'm at and what I've been doing with it. I think on my last video I was beginning to work on the motor. I was ordering a bunch of stuff like valve covers, intakes and stuff like that. I was talking to a guy about the throttle body injection, and the motor was over here. Well, we took the motor back apart. It had been rebuilt probably 20 years ago and all the grease had crystallized, so we took all the bearings and crank and pistons out, and I put them in a parts washer and washed all of it back off and re-oiled and greased everything and put the motor back together. Painted it mineral gray, I think it's a Dodge color, and then we installed it. And this is where we're at today. This is the throttle body part of it. Hopefully that'll work pretty good. Now the motor, when I hooked the motor in here, it really wasn't a whole lot of adjustment on as far as where I wanted to put it. It kind of went where the only place it could go. I got about a ½ inch back here behind the distributor. And then I've got, if you can see it, in front of the water pump, about right there, I got about the same at the front of the water pump by the time the electric fans were put on. The radiator and the electric fans, I bought this aluminum rod and positioned everything on here, and I had a guy will come in and weld the rods on to hold the fan on. And then he also, if you can see over there, I don't know if you can see it or not, he welded, I can't even see, there it is, welded the tabs on for the catch can. But I got it painted. I had to modify my intake a little bit, and unless you know what this intake's supposed to look like, you probably wouldn't be able to tell. The distributor can come out without taking the motor out. You have to take the cap and the bug off in order to hook it in there, but it's possible to be done, which is good because I didn't want to have to mess around with that. I would have just come in here and cut a relief in there and done some other stuff with it. I did get the air conditioning condenser back installed to make sure that there wasn't going to be no clearance issues with the fan and the hood sides and all that. Made my own lower and upper radiator hoses by going to O'Reilly's with a piece of wire and taking about 30 minutes and finding something that I could use. That's that. I did go ahead and put the grill in, and the headlights and the headlight bar and all that stuff on. It doesn't have the radiator splash apron on it yet, but it's just like 4-6 bolts that hold that on, so that's not that big a deal. I did preload my coilovers a little bit. I don't really know a good starting point for this, so I just kind of preloaded them a little bit, and when I get to a point where I'm putting this truck back on the ground, I'll just kind of look to see what's going on, just to make sure it don't, go up to the bump stop or even get into my oil pan. But down here, I did go ahead and dress up the underneath side of it a little bit with a billet aluminum oil pan for the transmission, and billet aluminum flywheel cover, and the motor oil pan, just what that is. Little mini torque starter. This here was the fun part of the deal, folks, right here. See this motor mount? This thing's actually upside down. This big ring, let's get here. This big ring is supposed to, all this is supposed to be on here. Well, the reason why this is upside down is because, like I said earlier, I didn't really have a whole lot of options on where to put this motor because everything is like super duper tight. So what I did was I spun this over, and the reason why I spun it over is because this part of the bracket was hanging below the frame, and I didn't like that. I wanted as much gusset as possible, holding this motor up, and much welding space as possible, so I could really burn it in. So what I ended up doing was I come in here, and at this point here, backed in here, I cut a slot in there because this point here was over here. Well, that made it so this washer wouldn't fit on top of there. I couldn't flip it over. So cut a slot in there, spread this out, and then cut a pie and welded it back in. I did that to both sides. That gives me my motor mount and all of the gusset in order to weld that on there. And I feel a lot better about that than I did before. These were actually made for a 32 car. I don't really know what the differences are in the frame, but I know that it didn't really work out well for my application, so we modified it like everything else you do. You have to modify it. So that's where we're at on that. Now this is the U-joint coming off of the rack, and I'm not really sure what's going to happen here. I think that I may have to get a double U-joint one for here. But anyway, I think my D-rod, I think I'm going to have to come in here and notch this out a little bit and let the D-rod pass through this motor mount back into here somewhere and then shoot up into the firewall wherever the column ends up coming out at, is what I think is going to happen. I'm also not opposed to taking this rod out and cutting it off and then welding the splines on farther down in order to run it underneath here. I'll do that if I have to. We're kind of in the very beginning stages of the steering dilemma, so we'll see what happens on that. But anyway, there's the color of the motor. It turned out pretty good. The transmission, I painted it to match. I don't know if you can see it with that halogen light on I got back there. Maybe you can see it there. Yeah, it's a mica finish. Like I said, I think it's a Dodge color. I'm not really sure. It was some I had in the can or in the cabinet. So anyway, like I said, I put the front end back on. This was the first time that the grill and the radiator shell and the headlight bar and all the headlights have been on since I've had the truck. They've all been kind of on here and there, but never really all at the same time, especially with the hood and all that stuff. Did go ahead and put a seat in. So sometime this weekend I'm going to go ahead and figure out where my column's going to exit the passenger compartment and get that going, because I want to get try to get the steering column in and all that buttoned up by Christmas, and my truck back on the ground to where I can move it around and get it out of the way, since I usually have Christmas over here in my shop. But anyway, there's a D-rod. These guys here are pretty good to do business with. I've ordered some stuff from them. They're reasonably priced. So if you're building a street rod and you want another part supplier, that's them. And there's a steering wheel I'm going to use. And down there's a column. That's a manual tilt column. Large for Chevrolet. So that's the direction we're going to go on that. And I'm going to use that little floor shifter there. But anyway, guys, that's where I'm at on my little project. Yeah, thanks for watching.